Welcome to Shalom World Podcast.
Welcome to the latest episode of Family Podcasts on Shalom World's podcast.
This is Mike and Alicia Hernan of the Messy Family Project. Today, we get to talk about one of my favorite age groups, toddlers.
Oh, yeah.
Toddlers are amazing because they are like raw personality. You know, give me an army of toddlers and I could overtake the world. But this raw personality and this exuberant energy is what causes a lot of parents a lot of stress, you know, and learning about how to form this child when they come against the will of the child, that when they start to exert it at this age.
As parents, we need to recognize that there are things that we can do to effectively help them transition, because they're going through a whole plane of development here, a transition that will be repeated in their teenage years oftentimes. And so how we engage and how we learn to be a more effective parent makes all the difference. We'll learn, if this is your first time going through this, don't worry. If you're frustrated, if you're pulling your hair out with your toddler, no problem. There is some great ideas that we're going to share with you to help you manage and get through this time with ease.
Today, we are going to hear from a real expert in dealing with the, 0 to 3 and 3 to 6-year-old age group. We have with us Maggie Radzik, our good friend who we are so excited to have on. This is going to be a real treat for you. She is a veteran Montessori teacher and actually a catechist for the catechesis of the Good Shepherd, and she's a formation leader for all levels, from young children teaching them about the Lord up until adolescence. And she is very experienced and knowledgeable and really has a heart for parents. Thank you so much, Maggie, for flying all the way from Florida and being here with us. We're so excited about this conversation because I think it's going to help a lot of parents.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Good to be
So
with you.
I mentioned that you are a Montessori teacher and you've taught Montessori for many, many years, 20 years or so.
Going on 30.
30,
Right?
yeah.
Almost 30 years. Awesome. So for those who are not familiar with the term Montessori, it might be hard, but in a nutshell, what is the Montessori philosophy of education?
Well, it's based on the discoveries that Dr. Maria Montessori made around the turn of the last century.
Okay.
She was a medical doctor who really wanted to have nothing to do with education, but the hand of God led her to work with children, and through her observations, she really uncovered the time frame of development that coincides with everything that St. Thomas Aquinas talked about, the development of man. And she prepared environments for the flourishing of the different stages of development.
Okay.
Right. So it's a simple way of looking at the child. She looked and observed design. She observed and saw patterns in ways that the environment would help be more conducive for their learning and their flourishing.
Yes. And she identified the most important element in the child's environment is the adult. So it's the adult who has to become aware of who the child is and what their needs are at the various stages of development. So she came up with a chart, I guess I would say. It's her theory of human development from conception through maturity at age 24, called the 4 planes of human development.
Okay.
And she saw that from conception to the onset of reason, about 0 to 6, is the most important stage of life, and then 6 to 12 is another stage, 12 to 18, and then 18 to 24. Right. And that the human person is different at each stage, learns in a different way, and requires a different response from the adult.
Right. Yeah. So that right there, what you just said, that the needs of the 0 to 6 child are different than the needs of 6 to 12 and onward, right?
Different.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of parents are asking right now, what are those needs? Because it's very hard when you have your child flips out, over particular things. Their food is touching. You didn't put my shoes the right way, or I want to do it myself. Can you just talk for a minute to those parents who are like, yes, what are the needs of my toddler? I'm thinking like under 6, like the under 6 crowd, right? What are their needs and just how can parents respond to them?
Yeah. Well, one of her most repeated phrases was, "Show me the 6-year-old and I'll show you the man." And that was, in keeping with the church. I think it was Ignatius Loyola who used to say, "Give me a man in his first 6 years of life and I'll give you a saint." The church has recognized for centuries that period of development prior to the age of reason is a key foundational period when the human personality is developing and becoming integrated or not.
Okay.
And as parents, we know as adults, we can't develop another human person. We can be there, we can support, we can understand, but we can't do it for them.
That's right.
I think a lot of parents kind of think they can.
Yeah, or at least that is, we think it's our job somehow.
Right. So one of the things Montessori saw is the goodness of the human person. That, in keeping with the church, the role of, or the how original sin affects the human person, that it didn't obliterate our nature. Yes, it's this wound that we all carry. But she says what should be our attitude is, yes, I have that same wound too. Let's help one another. We can't punish or reward concupiscence out of the human person. That's impossible, right? So once we become aware of the needs, especially of the 0 to 3-year-old, those years are the critical years. And she would, say to parents, picture your infant moments after birth, and then that same child at the age of 3. Think of how much development has happened. They're walking now. They've got full language. They're feeding themselves. And really, what did you do other than, provide an environment and some nutrition? The child had to accomplish that themselves. And they did it through meaningful interaction with their environment. So Montessori used to say, if the environment is rich, the development will be rich. If the environment is poor, the development will be poor. And a space in each room for the child so that the child can live their particular life. So what do they need most beyond relationship? They need movement. They need so much more
like perpetual motion machines.
Yes. That's the only way brain development happens is through movement. And all the science has been there.
Jumping, all of those things.
Constant movement. And the science, there are many websites I can recommend, but the science has been there for a long time now. The more a child moves in their first 3 years of life, it directly corresponds to their brain development.
That's right.
One of the things that a kind of phrase that we've started using in our parenting trainings that we do is that children are not a problem to be solved. They're a person to be known. And I think about, like you're saying, with like the spills and things like that. A lot of times parents are like, no, I don't want them to work with this because they're going to make a mess. Okay, wait a minute, time out. What's the most important thing here? Is having a clean house more important than having an independent child? No, it's actually not. And this is not a problem. This child is not a problem. They're a person. And we have, I think, a part of our culture is so high-paced.
Oriented towards efficiencies and so forth, right? Having
children are not efficient.
Right? Now, raising a child in a home is the most efficient way to form a child.
Better than any other.
Right. But in that moment, for a parent, it's far easier for them to do the job. How do we help them? So as they're toddlers, what is the way for a parent?
How can we help them?
Yeah, how can we be there to make sure that we're not just forcing them into things, but we're also guiding them in the right way?
Well, I think there again, the understanding of the process of development. And I think one of the most beautiful things Maria Montessori said was the human family is divided into 2 poles of humanity, the pole of adulthood and the pole of childhood. And no one questions that the adult, the parents, are here to help form the child. But what we don't know is that the child is sent to form us. They are sent to form and change us just as much. And if we don't open ourselves to that formation, she said, we frustrate the apostolate of the child. So in their mistakes, in their learning how to pour, what are they trying to show us? Friendliness with error. We get so hung up on making mistakes. And Montessori said we have to be friendly with our errors. That's how we learn.
Friendly
Look
with
at the
ourselves.
Which kind of gives ourselves the patience and the grace and the forgiveness of.
Right. Does the young child get discouraged when they're learning to walk? Do they fall down a second time and say, oh, forget it. I'm never going to learn to walk. I'm just going to. They don't. They're not naturally discouraged. So if we step back and observe the nature of a child, we see how much they love simplicity, how they're willing to practice over and over again. If when the adult has to have a limit of, okay, I can't continue practice pouring right now, okay, but when we know they need these skills, the hand is the tool of the mind. She said, never give more to the mind than you give to the hand. We're constantly offering work of the hand, pulling grapes off of a stem, having a little chopper so that they can chop a banana alongside of us. There's always something the child can do. And I've seen these in these great Montessori homes, scooping beans out of a bag into the pot. The coffee grinding, in our classroom right now, that is the favorite activity, putting the beans in the coffee grinder and grinding. But that amount of movement, and then once we see the child engaged in an activity, letting them have their own experience without constant chatter and praise on the part of the adult. Let them have their own experience and watch how
Don't give them an award and a trophy for every moment that they...
Right, or definitely not a good job,
That's actually a big deal.
Don't say good job. Just let them be.
Yes, because what good job says is that's the end of the activity. When the adult stops doing that, when we restrain ourselves, we see what's natural to the 0 to 3-year-old is to repeat. And now we know that repetition builds all of those dendrites. When a child builds a puzzle and we say, good job, they look at us and oh, okay, I guess I'm supposed to do something else now. If we say nothing, they do the puzzle over and over and over again. That's where Montessori said the adult works to change the environment, to better the environment. The child works to change themselves, to build themselves. So they don't wash dishes because they're dirty. They're washing a dish to have a purposeful activity, to figure out the work of a sponge, the feel of the suds, the joy of water. What child doesn't love water? She recommended very few toys and lots of time out in nature and time moving. Toys really don't satisfy.
Talk to me a little bit about how do we as parents, we want to raise our kids up, and there's a beautiful sense that Montessori is trying to guide and use the internal needs of the child to kind of direct them towards this. But there are those limits. There are times when a child just isn't doing the right thing. They're throwing their food. They're ignoring mom and dad.
They're hitting other children.
They're hitting other kids.
Things like that.
They're really acting out in ways that really aren't socially acceptable, or they're, whatever, right?
To put it kindly.
Right. So what do we do in that situation? Do we just say, oh, well, they're little children. Let them just lead. They're designed perfectly.
No. I think so many of those situations go away when the environment is meeting the needs of the child.
Okay.
So
frustrated.
if we can train ourselves to observe and say, okay, why is the child frustrated right now? Have they had enough movement today? Have they had enough time with me today? I think of a mom sharing with me that, her 4-year-old kept pushing the 2-year-old down over and over. And, why is he doing that? And then to realize, this 4-year-old had you his whole life until this 2-year-old came along, So it's just filling that love tank. And this mom said, I don't do timeouts anymore. I do time-ins. I get down and I just, but still, no, people don't hit people. We stop the hitting, but we have to figure out, why is this happening?
Right.
Or are we allowing the toddler to constantly take something out of the older child's hand?
Right.
We can't do that either. Nope.
Right.
Michael's working with us. Let's find some work for your hands.
Sure.
We don't punish. We try and stay, emotionally neutral, which is the big challenge for the adult.
Yes.
They're not trying to push our buttons.
Right.
They're trying to live their own life. And if we can be as empathetic but as clear with our limits as possible, we don't allow climbing on the dining room table. Climbing is a great thing. I see you need to climb. Let's find an appropriate place to climb. We don't climb on the dining room table. And we come off every time.
Right.
But then we have to provide climbing for the toddler.
I've taken my couch cushions off of the couch and like put them out on the floor and said, here, climb here. This is a good place to climb. The dining room table is not the place to climb. You know, and I think a lot of times we kind of underestimate the different needs that they have, and we just see their frustrations. Like I said to this one parent, I'm like, your toddler is not waking up every morning thinking, how can I get mom really angry today?
Yeah.
They're
but
not
it feels
doing
like that sometimes. It does.
It feels like that,
Yes.
but they're really not doing that.
Yeah,
in
and
some ways.
I think especially with the toddler too, to realize their pace, how differently a toddler's pace is in life. They don't respond immediately. Their capacity for receptive language is much greater than their capacity for expressive language until 3.5 or 4.
Okay.
So the young child, I think of a toddler teacher I was watching. A little toddler had climbed up on the prayer table, and she said, Thomas, put your feet on the floor. Feet go on the floor. So rather than think of that language. Rather than don't climb on the prayer table, she's giving him the knowledge of where his feet belong. Put your feet on the floor. And I watched him look at his feet and look at the floor and look back at his feet. And then he stepped off the prayer table. And I thought, another adult would have said, get off the prayer table. Get off the prayer table. You're not listening to mommy. Get off the prayer table. They take time. Give them the time. Say it twice.
Yeah.
And then we can say, okay, if you don't come off the prayer table, mommy will have to move your body off of the prayer table or whatever it is, off of the dining room table.
Yeah.
Right.
We give them the choice. If they don't make the choice, then. So we're trying to build the toddler's will rather than control it. So it's offering 2 choices, always between 2 goods. This is a great habit for adults to get into. Would you like mom to put butter on your broccoli, or would you like to put the butter on your broccoli?
Right.
But
We
the butter's
wait.
going on the broccoli.
No, the broccoli's going on the plate.
yeah.
But right. You don't get the choice in the broccoli.
Yeah.
We don't give a choice where there really isn't a choice. But, then we wait. And then if the toddler doesn't make a choice, okay, I have to make the choice now.
Right.
And if they get upset, that's okay. You'll have another opportunity. Montessori saw that the intellect and the will are developing from time in utero. And now, we know through science that's absolutely true. The child detaches from the breast to look around the environment around 8 weeks old. When they are ready, to start turning away from mom a little bit, that's an act of the will. So we welcome this act of the will, this wanting to cooperate in taking the diaper off, wanting to cooperate in dressing. We're using language, for everything we're doing with them in the bathtub. And every time their hand goes on to participate, we welcome that act of the will. When it's not safe, we let them know. We say, this has to be an adult work. It wouldn't be safe. I don't want you to get hurt. But that offering of choices and then allowing them to respond. So many parents, and I've just seen it, being in all these homes, so many parents have said that just saved our family life. And once you develop that great habit of, would you like to walk out to the car, or do you want mom to carry you?
Yeah.
We don't have to say we absolutely have to go. Do you want to, then they have some power. I want you to carry me. Okay, I'll carry you.
And this is so huge. I mean, to really understand that, to really fulfill what God's design is for this child, because we have to have the end goal. The goal isn't that they're going to be controlled by us forever by any means.
Right.
We shouldn't control them in the beginning, but really the goal is that they're going to have the freedom to choose virtue, to choose the good life, right? And this begins at a very early age. And the sooner we get this down, the better it will be for us and for our kids.
Yes.
Maggie, thank you. There's so much more we could talk about here. You're going to want to stay with us as we sum up and give you some highlights and also some very practical tips for you to apply this in dealing with the toddlers and the tantrums of your life. Stay with us.
Come together, we're all family.
Wow, there was really a lot of information that was given there. So we wanted to take some time right now to give you some ideas to implement with toddlers in your home. Number 1, respect their need for order. Children from 0 to 6 have a really great need for order because they are absorbing huge quantities of information throughout the day. That means a regular routine is important, but also realize that where things are kept, the method of how things are done, sometimes things need to change, of course, but we should realize that the order being upset may be why your child throws a tantrum.
And the second idea to implement, take time to observe your child. Our pace of life in the world is so fast these days. We need to slow things down. And when we give the child the time to think, to work, to respond, that is how we can avoid some of these tantrums and blowouts, right? We need to see that their needs are fulfilled, and that will bring more peace to them. It'll help them develop, and it'll bring more peace to our household.
Number 3, give your child choices. The development of the will is key at this age. This is why kids say no, right?
Right.
They're exercising their will. And actually, we do need to allow them to do that, but within limits. Parents do this by giving them a choice between two goods. Helping them to use their will correctly is actually a very important skill for them to learn.
And the fourth idea to implement is that instead of putting them in front of a screen, put something in their hands. Hands are the key to the mind. So when your child is fussy in a public place, like at a grocery store, consider what you put in their hands to touch and explore instead of them zoning out in front of a screen, which can actually be harmful to their mental development at this very important stage of their lives.
And last, and probably the most important thing, create an environment that encourages independence and work. The young child has a great need for purposeful work. Now remember, they're working not to get the job done, they are working to construct themselves. So when you're working, give your child work to do right alongside you. This gives them confidence and self-esteem. Remember, the child is not working to change the environment, they're working to change themselves. Well, we hope this episode on toddlers and tantrums was a great blessing to you and help you to really see your little one with new eyes. Don't allow this episode to just go by and just kind of go down the memory hole, but take some time to talk with your spouse and see how can you incorporate these principles into your parenting so you can really pursue this path to holiness together. We hope this episode has been a blessing to you, and if it has, we ask you prayerfully consider supporting Shalom World so we can create more episodes, more shows like this that will serve families throughout the world.
Yeah, we've been excited and honored to partner with Shalom World on this, and we want to invite you and really encourage you to make a donation in support of Shalom World. No gift is too small, and no gift is too large. We'll take all donations to support Shalom World and continue to evangelize the culture. And we're really excited about our next episode with Shalom World. We're going to be talking about a perennial topic, something that all parents are concerned about and a little anxious about these days, technology. And can we use technology with virtue? So you really want to join us for this episode. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Have a suggestion for us? Drop us an email at podcast@shalomworld.org. Your donations help us bring incredible podcasts like these. A little goes a long way. Do consider making a donation today. shalomworld.org/donate. Follow @Shalom World Podcasts on Instagram to know when we're dropping the next episode. Head out, spread the word, and stay blessed.
Shalom World Podcasts is now available on all online platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and others.